The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
All systems go.
On this episode of Let's Find Out, we're going to explore the depths of the unknown, the mysteries of the paranormal, and the transformative power of spiritual healing. Our guests collectively bring decades of experience in the fields of paranormal investigations, shamanism, ancient traditions, clairvoyance, mediumship, and spiritual growth. Get ready for an enlightening conversation that promises to challenge your perceptions and expand your awareness. All this plus more. Please welcome our good friends, Stacia Wills and Thomas Patrick Gormley. They are the Wardruna Experience, my friends. Welcome to Let's Find Out.
Thank you for having us.
Nice to see you again, my friend Raph.
Nice to see you again, man. It's been a while. I think every time I bring you on, we just keep moving to the next level and bringing some great conversation, information, and enlightenment, as I said earlier, because there's so much to cover here. We're going to take our time because I feel that the mission that you're both in and the rest of your team is very important, because I think sometimes we kind of lose focus of what we're supposed to be doing. And so we'll begin. So with all that we'll be covering tonight, for our friends, the listeners, can you introduce yourself real quick and give a background on what it is that you do?
Do you want me to go first? Okay.
Oh, of
Hi,
course.
I'm Stacia, and I'm a shaman. I'm known as a Mulfor. My grandparents came from the Carpatho Mountains. The portion they came from is the Kiev Rus area in Ukraine. We're a very small shamanic tribe. We're persecuted throughout history. There's less than 1 million of us left. So I do push the history, but also with that history is a lot of trauma. And I started my journey as a child with these gifts. But about 20 years ago, I started having visions on how to actually heal the family curses, the generational demons, everything that goes along. My guides just put me on a path and they helped me form what was Wardruna. And the healing techniques that I used are now the healing techniques we use together. And I always knew that there were supposed to be people that were to be part of the group because they kept saying the group was supposed to be a we and not an I. And I just said, probably about 1.5 years ago, well, when is this we coming along? And Thomas fell out of the air like right in front of me. And it was just one shaman after another. And I didn't realize that was the path that it was going, that this was going to be a huge collective pull of very diverse shamans for healing. And in the meantime, before I met Tom, we were doing therapy sessions with different groups, VAs, independent therapists. There was some from Cleveland Clinic, but we have hypnotists. There was just so many different forms of healing modality that I was using myself to get past my trauma. And when I presented it to Tom, I reached out to him. Somebody told me I was supposed to, and I sent him a request, and I said, "Hi, my name's Stacia, and I'm a shaman." And it was just instant connection from there. Tom knew exactly what I was talking about, and he grabbed me by the hand and he took off running with Wardruna, to the point I trusted him so much that I handed it over to him to run so I could just sit back and do the portion that I do. And Tom has been just an amazing part, and he's brought so many people to Wardruna. The group we have is amazing. But I'll let Tom talk, and then we'll talk about the group.
Yeah. So it is amazing. It's one of those things that people in the paranormal have to know.
Yeah.
You watch the TV shows, you watch all that, and it's this pattern. It's a linear pattern. And we're looking at this with Wardruna has a 360. So if you have to help a client at their home, they're having a paranormal issue, you arrive, and me, my psychology background, I notice sometimes, hey, this person was just off at war. They come back and all of a sudden their paranormal issues start happening. There's a trauma there. Sometimes when you help relieve them or put them on the path to heal from that trauma, the paranormal goes away for them. So it's not always the big spooky thing. Sometimes it's our own, what we call familiar demons, that we help people get in line with and recognize. It's almost to the point where we talked about before, Raf. An alcoholic, that's their familiar demon. That's what they're maybe treating some other trauma for. And we have to dig deep on that. And that's why we have this group, because it's not only us, it's therapists, licensed therapists that we have in the group. They're able, if I see somebody has PTSD, I could pass them on to our Rolodex. We have what we like to call subcontractors. They're part of our group, but they believe in what we're doing. And I could hand them off to somebody that maybe do EMDR therapy, where, you could help them with that, trauma of a lifetime, and they could go from that. Akashic records, anything you could think of that might help, to the point where we've sent people that were hearing voices, and we determined sometimes people said, oh, let's just give them a pill, they'll be fine. No, you found out they had a vitamin D deficiency. And once they got back on the vitamin D and they were doing well, the voices went away. So we're treating holistically, and we're looking at the problem a little deeper, whether it be trauma or just an actual paranormal issue going on, and we pass it on. We have heads of the group that do like energy healing, and we have a head of the group, Kathy Faketic, who does that. Of course, Stacia is the head of all the psychics and the mediums and the shamans and all, and I'm just overseeing the whole group. The medical people, our ghost hunting crews that go to some of the cases to see what's really going on. So it's a lot of diverse stuff going on. It's a big group, but it's a tight group too. It's a we, it's not an I. So that's what makes it so great, is we're all talking to each other, communicating, and getting these ideas to make sure that we look at it in a 360 whole to help our client heal or put them in the right direction to have that. And it always comes full circle, because Stacia will tell you that she'll work with a client and send her off to somebody that does the EMDR. And then full circle, a couple of years later, she comes back to Stacia in a totally different outlook on life, and thanks us and is appreciative, and everything that we might have said to them has come to pass, and they're on a better path. And that's the thanks that we need. Helping somebody go to sleep, taking fear away, taking that trauma away, or putting them on the right path. That's what it's all about. It's everything. It's not just paranormal. It's all the other things. It's the healing of your spirit, your mental awareness, and your physical awareness. Again, if one of those things is off, then everything gets to be off. So we want to try and keep that together as a whole with Wardruna.
And, it's interesting, as always, Thomas, that you pretty much answered every question that I was going to do with the follow-ups. It's almost like you were reading everything I had here, which is perfect, which is why
I am
love
a shaman, so.
Well, there is that, as seen on television. No, I'm kidding, brother. But, with a 360 approach, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. It's very important, because this is going to be not much of a question. It's kind of a statement with a question. It'll be kind of loaded. Now, and all of us, we've been around for a little while. We've seen paranormal groups and TV shows like a Richter scale. It's popular ones, and it's not popular. I think we're right back to where we are, where it's becoming more of a popular thing to do, where untrained people go to locations and do things that maybe they should not be doing. And I'm one of the opinion that perhaps, I'm not saying we as a whole, but some people have lost their ways when it comes to doing these types of investigations, because I'm seeing a whole lot of people trying to get the clicks, got to get the fame or the cool points on the internet. I'm not seeing much resolution. I'm not seeing much help, especially in residential cases, that once everything's done, they pack their bags and goes. Maybe the homeowner is stuck. Like, I have no answers. In fact, maybe they're worse off than when we first started. With your approach, say a residential is done, because you say you have different team members, different skill sets.
Right.
How does that go with your team, and how do you help, I'll say, a homeowner find a resolution or some sort of peace in this location?
Can I take this one, Tom?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So Tom and I have worked on many cases together. We've both, we've done house cases in our past, separate also. But when we get a call in, I usually, Tom and I usually take it, we assess it. We've had calls where I'm just like, this is absolutely familiar demons. This is mental illness. This is trauma, PTSD. And we start putting them in the right path. It's up to them to want the therapy. We can't force that. Also, we can't ask about the therapy unless the client tells us because there is HIPAA involved. So, I need to make that, abundantly clear. We're very, very professional in that way. Unless the client comes and tells us, we don't know who goes visits whom then. But, we've had cases, and we'll talk about, um, our veteran, but we've had cases where it was just mental illness. We're working on a case now where I talked to the woman, I brought Tom in, we talked to the woman, we passed it over to um, the investigative group, and they determined it's a haunting. Now we're standing back, they're doing the whole investigation, we know nothing what's going on. I don't know any of the history of the land, I know nothing until they call me to step foot on the land, and that's when the shamans will come in to then help cleanse the land. But we have ones, like I said, I had a case where I felt the gentleman was schizophrenic when I was going there. The whole entire time I'm going, this man's schizophrenic. I can feel it, and I'll tell you, I shouldn't have gone myself. I did. I stepped in. There was schizophrenia. I mean, it was everywhere, and he had a lot of weapons. I had to walk out and call the sheriff's department because he told me what he was setting up to do. So I mean, there's a lot of tense times. Depending on what you're dealing with. I would not recommend anybody going in. I knew better, and I should have never have done that. So it is nice now to have, other partners that we go in. But Tom and I had a very interesting case, and we got a referral from the VA. The VA told this gentleman to call Tom. Tom calls me and says, you can explain, Tom, exactly
Yeah.
what you were told.
So he had sent me a lot of instant messages of pictures of things that were happening. But the thing that got me was he said that all the stuff that was going on was happening in his bedroom. And I asked him, I said, well, when did this all start happening? He says, about a year ago. I said, what happened a year ago? He said, I got a divorce from my wife. And I says, well, what did you do? What was your career? And he said, well, I was in the military. I fought over in Iraq. He says, there were some weird things that happened to me over there. And then I started having dreams about Iraq again and all that. And just we got to the point when I called Stacia, what she picked up on, what I was kind of picking up on myself, but I wasn't totally sure because I haven't really dealt with a lot of them. But she picked up on a jinn. So it ended up becoming a jinn case, which is a totally different approach because I don't know if your viewers know that when people hear of jinn, they think, oh my God, it's a demon or something. No, it's actually just like us.
Mm-hmm.
It does have free will. It does have to answer to somebody, but it's interdimensional to the point where sometimes it could see us, but we can't really see it. But we do know the energy's there. And that's the hard part to deal with it. It could attach to somebody, almost present like an incubus, succubus, or anything like that, potentially. And that's the way it was presenting to this gentleman because this thing was taking advantage of him at night. And then when his girlfriend would come over, it would hiss at her. So we knew that it was standoffish. We knew it was a jinn, and then we were going to have to deal with it. And Stacia will tell you how she was able to deal with it and how we did this over the phone, which was crazy that we were able to do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, there is certain ancient symbols, and I know which symbol and what psalms to activate the symbol. So I had him put these print off on virgin paper this certain symbol, hang it in each room on the wall, activate it with a certain psalms. I also told him to play the Quran over and over again as in a chant. So he did that, and it was only within days. He contacts and says, well, the symbol that was on my bedroom wall is now down. I said, well, you got it. So we had him fold it up, dip it in wax, and he sent it to me, which we gave to John Zaffis's museum. He has not had an issue yet. And what's nice about this is the guy is going to counseling. He's very open with the counselor. He is still continue counseling. I told him, if you have any issues, I've checked on him. He's fine. There has been no activity whatsoever. Now, there is stuff he's going to have to be working on, as in the trauma and the PTSD, which he is. And we told him, if you do see any spirits around you that you brought back, please call us back. We'll help cross them over. It was just a very interesting case that we could do, via phone, and see full, just a full resolution of what can be done. But yeah, we have many levels of, home cases. But even just cases in general, and like Tom said, when it can go for years. I can get somebody and I can send them to a therapist, and the therapist then sends them to the hypnotist, and then sends them to the dietitian, and it just goes on and on. And I get them and they come back, and I'm like, they start telling me, I'm like, wow, you've, journeyed the whole way through Wardruna. What did you think? And they're telling me it's amazing. We saved their life. And that's the thing, is we don't really communicate. I can send maybe Larry the hypnotist. I have somebody, but I don't, like I said, I don't hear back unless the client comes to me, because that then becomes his client. We're very professional. There are some things that we do as we intermingle. The one therapist and I did develop a type of EMDR and soul retrieval. And that in itself has been amazing. But those are with my clients that I send to her, and then she assesses it, and then they call me in. There's just a couple treatments where I might say, hey, let's call the astrologer up. That was another one. We bring astrology in to see different patterns and different transits. I had a woman come in and say she was hearing voices. I said, this is a transit. We called the astrologer, didn't say anything to the astrologer. I said, here's her birth information. And she went and she goes, are you hearing voices? You're in a transit. I said, I knew it.
Mm.
So, we don't want people poking, or, thinking that they're psychic, or, listening to these voices. We want to make sure that it's complete health. We have holistic doctors. They're willing to run any blood work test to make sure that you're okay, because usually general practitioners in the mainstream healthcare are not. And it's usually a deficiency. So the whole group has collected a very nice group of professional people that just see things at every angle before you're just being thrown on medication.
That would be preferable, because sometimes medications do far worse
Oh,
than what is
yes.
actually supposed to be sold to you that it's supposed to be doing. And
Oh,
it's interesting you mentioned talking about the 360 approach. You mentioned Jin, which is if correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I might be, I'm pretty sure I might be. Jin is more of a terminology from the Middle East, correct?
correct.
Which is why you start saying the verse in the Quran, which makes perfect sense, because you have to connect these things, something that's familiar to that spirit wherever it comes from. So not something you hear a lot in the United States with jinns. You hit because just kind of like different kinds of angel classes. You have negative spirits also have different types of things too. There are different classes of them as well. So it's good that you identified it and came up with some sort of solution for that. And was that your first encounter ever with a jinn, or
No, I've been dealing with gin for 10 years. And it was funny because when Tom was presenting this to me, I got so excited. I kept going, it's a gin. It's a gin. I know what this is. It's a gin. It's a gin. And I was absolutely ecstatic. I love working with the gin. I have worked with them numerous times. I've had success. I've never had an issue. Some people don't like working with them. I've never, like I says, I've never had a problem. So it was very easy for me to work with, this being. But people have to understand, most of your demons are familiar demons. It's trauma. And everybody wants it to be that big scary thing in the closet. No, you really don't. That 1%, you really don't want that. I don't know why people, they want these demons and they look for it doesn't make sense to me. Not only that, not everything's a demon. There are elementals. There's different religions, there's every type of element, culture. There are so many things out there that we don't know. And just to label it a demon every time, and then they're like, well, it can't be taken care of. Why isn't the holy water working? Because it's not going to respond to holy water. So, like I said, this is a very diverse group of shaman, and we know we have a lot of, knowledge, a lot of training. We're not youngsters. And we're all professionals. We've been military, we've had our own businesses, we've worked many levels that brought us to the point of where we are Wardruna.
And with the network that you have of supporters and people that also work under you that you commission to do some work, what are I'm not gonna say what are the qualifications, but what are you looking for in someone who says that want to be a part of your group? What are the qualifications, and what are you looking at an individual?
As in who the core group is at the moment, it's closed. We have every section, we have a very nice group. The one department that we have open for more people are the medical licensed professionals. We can't seem to get enough of them. I mean, we no sooner get one in a state and it's filling up. We're passing people off. So really, as like the shamans and the hypnotists and the herbalist and the energy workers, at the moment we're good at that point. Each department, for example, if Kathy Faketic has an energy worker she's interested in, she will bring that in, and I will bring in the shamans. Tom and I oversee that, but at the moment we're it's a tight knit group at the moment, but it's a nice size group. It's not small. It's the medical professionals that we're looking to bring more in.
And going back to something you said earlier, I think it goes hand in hand. When you mentioned generational curses,
Yes.
My opinions is that it could go either way. Whether they're learned behaviors that a son or a daughter picks up along the way, whether it's negative, mostly usually negative because it affects them in a bad way. I look at it from, I've had some friends in the UFOlogy world where they are the opinion that certain people are essentially tagged, let's say by an extraterrestrial or by something. And each generation they come back to see how they're doing, whether it's negative visitation or some sort of experience they see when they actually show up in your bedroom, you're abducted, and do the experiments. On this side of the fence, obviously a little bit different. What are these generational curses? What's causing them? Is it really inherited through a bloodline, or are these some sort of negative spirits that just will not let go of these families?
It's a little bit of everything. Wouldn't you agree, Tom?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of it that works that way.
Yeah.
It's a little of everything, depending on, that's epigenetic sometimes too, part of it. But there is, when somebody is abused, they learn from their abuser and they grow up, they become an abuser, and it just goes on and on until somebody breaks that chain. So that's kind of how it is. Some people that live in poverty, all they know is to live in poverty. So when they get older, they don't have that presence of mind. You got to let people know, hey, you could succeed. You could break this chain by doing this, instead of letting yourself fall into whatever is going on in that generation to generation. So,
And everybody that is in the group, we were the generational curse breakers within our family. And what's nice is anybody who says they've completely healed their trauma, they have not even started to heal trauma, because it never goes away. You always have something that triggers you. But what I like about our group is this group is, I can have a bad day and I can call the therapist I need within the network, to help me. And we've all used the network. We've all helped each other. We've even called each other out, like, come here, something's going on. There's this group Wardruna. We need to tell you about it. We've said that to our own members. Like, we need to talk to you about this group. And we kind of laugh and we talk because we do have the trauma. And, it was just our journey, our path to heal it this time and to correct it. I know, as in my family trauma, my great grandfather was put in an orphanage in Ukraine. The only thing that man knows is abuse. That orphanage after World War II was charged with crimes against children. Only 5% of the children lived, and he was one of them. And my grandfather was a monster. So, it was just abuse after abuse after abuse until it landed at my doorstep, and I was not going to have it. And I worked very hard not to be like these people. And I still work every day. Every once in a while, I catch a glimpse and I can see my mom, or you know what I mean. You see something, you're raised by these people, and you have to stop and be very mindful that you are not continuing the abuse. And I did drug testing within the power plants for 20 years. I owned an occupational health and safety, and too many people I stood in front of, and they said, "But my dad was an alcoholic." Or my dad used drugs, or my mom beat me. And I'd look and say, I don't care. That has nothing to do with me. You're a grown adult. And after the age of 18, you're responsible. How are you going to fix this? How are you going to stop this? How are you going to heal your family line?
And I love that you mentioned that because Thomas, you have a background in law enforcement and criminal justice, and you've seen a lot of people come and go. When you've dealt with some of these, I'm going to say, is it okay? I can say criminals, right? Is that okay to say? I think is
Yeah, that's fine. Just, we want to keep it simple, of course. So
sure.
yeah.
And they've been there for a while. Some of them maybe a one-off, but maybe a lot of those people did suffer from a generational curse. Without naming names, can you think of a person or a case where this was 100% legit, definitely a generational curse?
Yeah, anybody that is in prison,
Yeah,
isn't inherited sometimes. You don't just become a criminal. It's a learned behavior, whether it be, a family trait. Because a lot of these inmates say, well, my dad was in jail and, because of this, and hearing those stories at a young age and learning, you could do either one thing. You could say, I don't want to be like that person, or I'm going to take on, like, oh, my dad was my hero, I'm just going to do the same stuff. And they end up in jail too. It's that mind. It's like, I talk about serial killers. All of us go through trauma. There comes a point where you could break the trauma, where you're being abused. And like Stacia says, you get to the point is, I'm not going to be this way. And that frame of mind, you change, or you keep the trauma and you don't make that change and you just continue and you pass it on, or you become somebody like a Jeffrey Dahmer or anything like that from the abuse or whatever. Any of these people, it all goes hand in hand. Yeah, I know my background in criminology is very helpful for what we do with Wardruna, because the thing is I'm really digging into the profile of somebody's mind to be able to dig in and know exactly what's going on and how to refer them and how to help. Even with some families with their children, we go into a house and all that, and the children might be getting affected. There may be nothing wrong. They may have psychic abilities that we can help them develop. And then that way they get control of it. And then it's not so spooky anymore. Or I notice maybe something in one of their children that there's abuse going on and they're trying to keep it quiet, but we pick up on it. So we really want to get maybe the child some help with our group and all that. So God forbid they don't grow up to be the person that decides to go the wrong way and not the chain breaker.
and see that it's not a one size fits all. And I'm not going to ask for a simple formula because nothing's ever really simple. If it's simple, then I know I'm in for a lot of work either way. What would be the first best step to try to at least minimize a generational curse when you identify that, yeah, I might be replicating these behaviors myself? If someone were to contact you,
Well,
what would yeah, go
what
ahead.
I've noticed is when they contact me, sorry about that. Um, and I've had a therapist sit in my office and say, "You got more out of this person in 10 minutes than I would have done in 10 months." And I said, "Well, I have the spirits talking to me, telling, tattling on, the whole generational line." But, usually what happens is they sit down in front of me and I start listening to the spirits. I start listening to, the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, and they start tattling. And, I am going to swear here. I always say the dead are here to fix the shit they created. And, from there, you can start seeing the trauma in their eyes and they start opening up. That is when I noticed my best time is you need to go to therapy. And right there, I have put people in therapy. I have had crisis on the line because, somebody came in and was so damaged that the only thing we could do is get crisis and get them to the hospital, because they ended up landing at, our doorstep, because they don't want. What's odd is I think we're still a little taboo, and it's sometimes easier to talk to us, and sometimes it's hard to get into therapists. So having a nice network of therapists where I can send, hey, this is an emergency, so the person doesn't have to wait, 3 months to get, their first visit, it does kind of help. So, they come, and just being more taboo with the, shamanism and tarot, they just open up. And that's what I think, is the beautiful process in it. And when you're standing there looking at them, and then they also know that you were healing your trauma, and you can share with them as you're holding hands and sharing your experience, they know that they're not alone. And they are more than willing to do each step after that. I've walked a lot of abused women, and some of them have taken years through divorce cases of, narcissistic husbands. I deal with a lot of attorneys where we're right there. I have a client for you, and I'm taking them to the attorney's office, and they back away from the attorney. We go back and forth and back and forth, and, until they're healthy enough and strong enough to get the divorce. But like I said, I mean, it is a whole group of people, and the network just keeps growing as we do need the more attorneys and more medical. You're just seeing it grow more and more, and having more of a success rate of these people wanting to heal.
And when you start talking to some of your clients, so you're talking about their ancestors are there and they're communicating through you and trying to maybe pass down something to them to say, hey, don't make the same mistakes that we did. We know what's wrong with this person. How does that work? Because I know that it can be very draining, I'm sure.
Yes, how I see it is, I'll start seeing where, on what side of the family the alcoholism is, or where the sexual abuse is, or where the neglect was, or, maybe I'll sit there and I'll start, contacting relatives, and they're like, I have no clue. And I'm like, was your dad adopted? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, that makes sense. Just because he's adopted doesn't mean that these ancestors don't exist. So then, that opens up a host, of different, problems with identity and everything. But I can pin in the lineage where what happens. And then that's when we start, breaking it down, and you can start seeing, the trauma. I've had fathers who said, I'm sorry I wasn't there. I've had uncles say, I'm sorry for what I did. I've had mothers who said, I wasn't well enough to take care of you. And, then they also give me details that I wouldn't have known, that allows them to understand that what I'm actually getting is a true message. And sometimes that apology from the other side has really helped.
So do you think maybe that's what's keeping them here and not crossed over quite yet, because they're not done fixing the shit they broke?
Correct. Yes, correct. Yes,
That's
that's how I see it. Yes.
that kind of
Fixing.
hit me right in the guts, my friend. That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
But the thing is it doesn't stop there. When they're able to give that message of healing, and they know that the person they needed to get the message to has healed, then somebody like myself that does the counseling with the dead and with the living, and with the dead, of course, to help them heal themselves and make that decision to cross over. So that's where that comes in. So when she picks up that they got their message out and they still need some help, we're there. So again, we have like I said, 360. Everything is looked at the way we have to look at it and not miss anything. We really want to pull it apart and make sure that we don't miss anything, because it's always that one thing that you miss that could create more problems. Because I know, like you said earlier, there's people that go in, they really don't know what they're doing on an investigation, and they could create more harm than good. But we always want to let any of these investigators out there know, if they do hit a roadblock, call us.
Yeah.
There's no ego involved. It's just, if you go in to help a family and you're at a roadblock, call somebody that could help you or teach you. So that way that family gets help. You take away that trauma, you take away that fear. They're able to sleep at night or just get through life. So that's the important part. That's what we miss in the paranormal. That's why Wardruna is so important. Is if we don't take care of the 360, then we're just putting people back in their house with more problems. And the more problems that happen, the more divide there is as we try and go down that path of life. And we run into these things. And we want to take all that away, or at least give the path to be able to do that.
And how does that affect you personally? Meaning that once you're done with a case, however long it takes, sometimes saying the generic term done with a case, you're not really done with the case because there's still follow up and there's still the memories and the feelings. How does that affect you on a personal level?
There's been some cases that I've laid down and cried at nights. I mean, sometimes it is very hard, the things that I see. I can openly talk about this case, because we're still advocating for this little girl. I had a woman, um, and since she's come to me, we've become very good friends. She came to me, and I looked at her, and she goes, "I'm worried about my granddaughter." And I said, my head's hurting." I said, "Something's going to happen to your granddaughter." I kept grabbing the back of my head, and I said, she's either, like beaten, shaken, dropped, something, like, you need to do this." I was so serious on it. I started calling um, CPS and just saying I was walking past the house hearing the child screaming. Um, Nobody really listened to us. And within 4 months, I got the phone call. The grandmother was at the hospital screaming that we didn't know if the little girl was going to live or die. She was only like maybe like 6 months old. It's a miracle she pulled through. The mother has now just been arrested after a year. The boyfriend is on his way of being arrested. The little girl, the bleed in the brain stopped. She's sitting, she's talking, she is blind in one eye. She has some delay, but that one was one of the hardest ones. What I felt, what I saw, and I just came home and laid in bed and cried that night because there was nothing I could do to stop it. And but there are people that I've had call me and said, "There's somebody up here walking around. They're looking for you." And I've walked up and I had no appointment. I sit down and I look at them. I'm like, "Oh, you're ready to commit suicide." And I sit with them all night until, we get crisis there, and I talk to them because you don't want them running away. I've had people who came to me and they fell off the wagon. I don't know what I'm going to do. Boom, I call AA. Let's get a sponsor in here. And I'm there 2 o'clock in the morning getting a sponsor in. So, a lot of people, they think, "Oh, you read tarot, you do this, it's fun, I want to be just like you." But I'm just like, the job that, us shamans have, it's different than, tarot and, throwing little parties. I mean, all that's fun, don't get me wrong. But, as shaman, we do see what's going on. We do have the curse, we feel the generational curses. We see the trauma. We have to fix so many different layers. It is different than just being what you want to call a psychic or a medium. It's a little bit different. This group has had, we've all have had, like near death experiences. We've all had, certain childhood, abuse. We bring a lot to the table of knowledge and how to handle things.
And I ask you the same question, Thomas, because I know you've also dealt with a lot of things, not only on more terrestrial basis in the prison system, but also in a spiritual sense. So you've had it from both directions. So how are you preparing yourself? And once everything's done, how do you wind down?
Well, it's been a lifetime of preparation. Everything, I think, and a lot of people that get into this and what we do, the universe has put us on this path. They've put people in our lives. They put experiences in our lives to be able to have the knowledge to do this. How do I wind down? Really, it takes a lot. But as a shaman, you learn those things over the years on how to ground yourself, how to protect yourself, and to do these things. But it's never foolproof. Like Stacia said, I still think back about certain cases that affect me, but I did a big sigh of relief knowing that through the pain of it, going through the pain with the client and coming out on the other side, it's so rewarding, and that's the best part, because again, people don't realize a shaman is more than what you think. You look back at the word shaman, the shaman does originate in Russia. But when you see the definition of it, it's the person of knowledge in the village. It's the person everybody comes to when they're not feeling well. It's the person that puts together the healing aspects. It's the person that could talk to the other side, to talk to the ancestors, to talk to your past loved ones. It's a healer. It's the medicine man, whatever way you want to look at it. It's everything all in one. In our village right now is anybody that comes to us. That's our village. The ones that want help. And again, people got to understand, if you don't want the help, you can't receive it. You have to want it. We've dealt with people that, say they want it, but they didn't. You have to want to heal. You have to do the work. Just like in the paranormal, Stacia and I have been doing this for a while. I've been at it for 40 years, but I do the work. I learn from others. I do the work. I don't ride anybody else or anything like that. You have to do the work. And just like somebody that needs to heal, we put you with people. They'll give you things to do. Do the work, and your path becomes brighter and clearer for you. And that's the important part.
And I will say this, there have been times clients have come to me and what is being pulled out triggers me. And at the same time, I said, I'm very honest and open with them. Like, I'm going to explain to you, I had this same situation, and clearly, it's hitting me. So I have a little bit healing here. I always joke around, going, I don't like to cry, but you're going to make me cry. I'm going to have to charge you extra. And we just kind of joke about it. But I notice that there are times with certain clients, it has also healed me. And I thank them. We also do, there's a lot of activities that we do. We do a lot of art therapy in the wintertime, making sure people are supported. Last Valentine's Day, it was beautiful. There was a beautiful ceramic shop here in Ohio, and we invited all of these spouses that lost their spouse. It was the first Valentine's alone. We gave them a nacho bar, we gave them ceramics, and we laughed and we cried. We had the psychiatrist there, we had the therapist there, we had energy workers there, just all to be supportive with these people who have been married 35, 45, 50 years. And now they're sitting there going, what do I do on Valentine's Day? So it is support. We don't charge them for that. There's a lot of things that, I put together that I don't charge for, just sitting around with maybe some candle magic of self-love and a bunch of women. And we're sitting in a dark room with a candle and we're giving affirmations of love just to make them feel better about themselves. So, there is the portion that, we're the business, but we're also the support network within the communities. There are the, local police. We're working with their advocacy departments to talk to victims. They have come to us. So we want to be that group that people can come more and more to, because it is not traditional, but it's just not flat. There's so many dimensions to help healing this, that they just don't feel like they're getting pushed through a system.
And beautifully said, because there's a reason I asked the question to both of you a few minutes ago, because this is a whole different side, and I'll use the term paranormal or spiritual work, that nobody really hears about. Because I think they're so used to seeing, great, we caught something, here's what we saw, end credits. I talk about no resolution. This is the hard work, because it's not just for the hour or two you're there. This is a lifetime commission.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are clients, I'll get text message 2 o'clock in the morning. I am so sorry, but I need you. You can't turn it off. I mean, I retired my whole other business last year, and this is the first year in 20 years that I don't have an occupational health and safety company. And I had a pretty nice sized business, but I trust, I trust in the universe. This is what they told me to do. And, I'm completely dedicated to all of it. The healers that we have, I mean, you can go to the website, they're amazing. We do have a very extensive group. We all have known each other in some way, shape, or, fashion, and we all kind of intertwined. I always throw out there to God love Gina. She was my first. I've been dragging her along for 20 years. It's, and she's also a shaman and she's our herbalist. And she just kept going. I kept saying, I'm taking you with me. You're going to do this. She goes, no, I don't think so. Now she stands in front of groups with me and I go, I told you were going to do this. And she's just amazing. But we've all become a family. I mean, we get together. We were in Connecticut, and I thank Tom because it was his um Paracon. There was a wall of Wardruna, and we were the buzz. Everybody was saying the energy, and it was the healing and the laying hands and talking to people. We just kept getting them coming up, and then they keep following us. And by the time we're at the witch trial festival, we have therapists. We've heard about you. How do we come work with you? So it's been exciting. We do have an announcement, and I'm going to let Tom make what we have coming up. He can announce it.
Which announcement? We always have so many of them, but yeah.
What we're going to be publishing.
Yes, we're going to be working on a magazine. It's
Right.
going to be Wardruna based. Any of the healers, anybody in our network will have like an article to do. There'll also be maybe a location that has some history behind it, and also we would feature somebody. Um, we plan on doing this on a like fall, summer, winter, and spring. So 4 magazines a year. And so they're going to be doing a lot of writing. A lot of people are involved with it. We have a lot of background support. Um, we plan on having one of the biggest names in the paranormal be our first person. And that's going to be very exciting. So we're keeping it secret right now. So we want to build up the momentum for the magazine. But on top of that, if you do want to see us speak, we're going to be all over the place. We have a big events coming up in the Ohio area in October, and also November in Salem, Mass for the Salem Paracon and Horror Fest, where there'll be a whole contingent of Wardruna there and able to see what we do, and we'll be speaking. And that way, a lot of other people that may have, for some reason, missed this podcast, they'll get to hear, the same type of stuff and have the avenue to come to us and talk and maybe start putting them on the right path.
Well, it is October 24th. You will have Tom, myself, Kathy Faketic, and Kenneth Drake at the Grafton School here in Ohio. Then November 2nd, November 1st, you have Christopher Lee, myself, Kathy Faketic. We will be at Haunted Hillview Manor in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. And, everything that, what Tom just said, where I don't know who's all going to be at those. I think
Yeah.
Gina's going to be there. Kathy will be there. Kenneth, myself, you. Is Lee Tran
Dr.
going to be there?
Dr. Letriana Brown,
Yeah,
Matt
she'll be
Brown,
there.
Gwen Johns. Yeah, we're going to have another contingent of Wardruna there, and it's always magical. I think all of our energies, it's almost to the point where we sit and we talk, we feel like all of us mesh together so well. It's like it's been lifetimes of us together.
Absolutely.
So
We did a Reiki healing in Connecticut at Tom's Paracon, and what was amazing, there were 6 women at the table, and I was sitting at the head. We were telepathically telling each other what to do. We knew exactly. I would look, and one would nod their head and do exactly what I said. She would look, and tell another one, and it just went around. And when the gentleman got up to put his shoes on, he goes, "Wait a second, I haven't been able to bend over in 6 years." And it was amazing. But we all hugged each other. That was the first time we all work together in such a large group. We're like, we did that telepathically. It was the connection between us. This is an amazing group.
And that's why I don't believe in coincidences. It was meant to be. You guys are all in the
Yes.
same frequency. It was just a matter of time before your paths crossed. And I was going to ask the question, what you're going to be for the rest of the year. You already took care of that part, but for the listeners of Let's Find Out that maybe have questions about Wardruna, or of course, where you're going to be this year, the magazine coming out, where can they find out? Through your socials, website?
Yeah, they can go to either Tom's Facebook page or my Facebook. It goes under Wardruna, Stacia Wills. We do have a website. It's wardruna.net. I have a couple things I'm finishing up on it. We're putting up some people, so it's going to be back up in the next couple days. We pulled it down to pop up a few more practitioners that we put in there, but it is wardruna.net. But you can look us up on Facebook. Like I said, you can contact Tom, you can contact myself. From there, we will, get you in touch with anybody that you need to get in touch with.
Excellent. And once you guys are stop being so busy, which probably will never happen. I've seen all the events and speaking engagements. Once the first issue of the magazine comes out, please come on the show. Let's talk about it. And want to know more about what's in the magazine, who's writing the articles, and perhaps we have some of them come on the show and tell some of their stories.
We would love that. They would love that.
Excellent. Thank you both for being on Let's Find Out tonight.
Copyright Diego the Podcaster. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of Diego the Podcaster and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, Diego the Podcaster, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out with Diego is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.